Hey guys, welcome to my second video. In my introductory video, I talked a little bit about being a field engineer, what it's like, and just gave a complete overview of the job. Like I started this role about a year ago, and it's been pretty rough the first couple of months. I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot of work. We are kind of at a point right now where we're a little bit slower because there's like a backlog of work needing to be rolled out. We're waiting for that rollout to happen. And I'm sure you guys know the economic situation right now. Like, field engineers are most of the time federal employees. So, with a lot of like new government policies and changes, including the tariffs, it's really kind of put a halt on our work for a little while. Right now, a lot of the operations are kind of a little bit backlogged. In our company, we merged with another company. And I know for a fact the tariffs are kind of affecting our supply of, the equipment that we get that's needed for us to, be able to carry out our, actual like operational like production work. But yeah, in this video I wanted to talk about a little bit more about what that's like, and how it was last year when it was busy. So first, let's start off with like my experience with the work life balance aspect of it. So like I said in the beginning of this video, it started out very busy, very hectic. I'd be at the job site for at least a minimum of a day, on average 2 to 3 days before I got to go back home. I'm in my regional territory where like my house is, within at least 250 miles, no more than 250 miles of these job sites. So I typically have the flexibility to like get my job done, and then like if there's nothing pending, like I'll just drive back home the same day if I'm not too tired. But in terms of the work-life balance aspect of it, there's gonna be a couple things that you do need to give up if you want to be a field engineer, like at least a level one field engineer, where you're gonna be on your feet most of the time. You're gonna be on the phones with support. But then again, in my specific industry, we have times where there's gonna be like downtime. Like you get to the job site, and like there's some initial work that's being done. Maybe you have to go configure some equipment and then wait, on the phone with your knock, the back end support. They're gonna be doing some things there. They're gonna be busy, and until they get their work done, you're not gonna be able to continue your work. So you got some downtime. You can scroll through TikTok, Instagram, or something. Just do something on your phone. You can even be, paying your bills or whatever. I've done that on a couple occasions. Like while I'm waiting for my support to be ready with my next task, I'm just doing something else. Um, you're gonna have that, but in terms of like being there in person, like being with your family, or like it's not gonna be like you're gonna be sitting at home like with the your laptop getting work done, and then your girlfriend or wife is gonna be bringing you food. You're gonna be on the job site most of the time, so be kind of prepared to like be able to be away from your loved ones, friends and family. There's going to be times where you might be getting home so late, like it's you're not going to have time. You're going to have to probably cancel plans, like if you made a plan. um, in other industries it could be different, but like a lot of the times you're going to be called up, like maybe on a day's notice. And you really, this is what I was saying about like canceling plans. Like as a field engineer, like you're not going to be able to make any solid plans really until the weekend. Like the weekend, like particularly Sunday, is probably the only day where you're not going to have work. You can do whatever, but there are times as a field engineer that you might even be required to work on Saturday. But they would let you know like earlier in the week, a lot of the companies, if you're going to be called in for doing something on Saturday. Now Sunday, there's in so far in my 1 year of experience, there have been two times where I've had to go in on Sunday due to some emergency, which was actually like somewhat, I don't want to say not like my fault, but it was like something that it was related to me in a way. But like I was responsible for going out and then making sure that gets knocked out on Sunday. It was a very crucial, so it was an important task, so it needed to be done on Sunday. Um, But yeah, like work life balance wise, like, don't make any plans on the weekdays unless you're 100% content that you're not going to have the work. Now the good thing about being a field engineer, like, you're not gonna you're it's likely that you're not going to be called in every single day. You're going to have days off throughout the week, even if it's on the weekdays or the weekend. And I think you're going to be able to kind of, be able to find a rhythm in how that's happening. Like, right now, especially because we're kind of a little bit behind. um, I noticed that I have some days where I'm not being called in. So what do? I just typically, like, upskill, within the field. Like, I learn more things about the industry that I'm in. Try to get certifications, or build some further knowledge in being a field engineer. That's sometimes what I do. If I really, have time to make a plan, I'll go ahead and make that go throughout the day. But otherwise, if I've been having days where it's back to back, it's busy. I'm not gonna give any make any uphold any promises with anyone. Like, there have been days where I've showed up at home at 1 2 a.m. Because it was like a 3 hour drive back from the site, and I got done with the work around like 9. After 9 o'clock, after I got done, I wanted to eat something, of course, and use the restroom because I've been at the site all day. And then I want to get some coffee. Maybe I want to go somewhere in the area, like, and just like, refresh my mind. So yeah, there's that. And I've done days where I've had to come back home like ridiculously late. Um, but it's not so common anymore. Like, it's just based on how far you're driving, how much work you have, and how much of a time management ability you have. So being a field engineer is great for teaching you time management, because like, helps you manage every task you're doing, in a more coordinated way. Just be aware of that. If you do apply for a field engineer role, it's not your typical 9 to 5. You should know by now, and that's fine with me because I like this kind of work anyways. Like, I like to be active, and yeah, this kind of work, is what feels meaningful to me. That's why I like being a field engineer, and I will continue in this role. But yeah, I did tell you in my previous video, if you watched it, that it's not entirely like, blood and sweat kind of work. You're not going to be lifting heavy loads. It's not like that kind of blue collar work. It lies somewhere in between blue collar and white collar, purely because, the nature of the work is a little bit blue collar, but you need to have white collar skill to do the job. Like, you need to have some theoretical knowledge. Or let me say this, in my industry, I learned a lot on the job. Like, it's not something that I needed to know before I came in, but it's good to have that theoretical knowledge because it'll open doors, for you down the road. Like, this is my next, subject that I want to talk about, is like, what's the scope as a field engineer. Like, since I just got, trained, like, I began this role, a year ago, and I'm still kind of a junior, like an apprentice. Well, at least I was when I started. If you're a field engineer, you have the opportunity to become a senior field technician, senior field engineer, when you get more book knowledge and practical experience on the job. So, like, there's tier one, which would probably be me. Maybe I'll be close to a tier two here pretty soon. There's tier two, tier three, and probably all the way up to tier four and tier five. So the more experience you have, the more knowledge you have of the domain, the quicker you can get to being, more seasoned field engineer, basically. And of course, with that comes the better pay, which is what I wanted to talk about next. So this video, of course, I wanted to talk about a couple of those things, and pay was one of them. So, you guys are pretty, I guess, concerned about that. The pay starting off is a decent livable wage. I mean, if you budget and, you do think you live in a cheaper locality, it can definitely go a long way. The pay does get better, of course, because this is an essential role. If you know how to do the practical work and you have the knowledge to be able to, maneuver things on your own without the need for support, you will of course get a pay raise, and with that comes more responsibility at times, because I've seen the person who is tier 3 or tier 4, they do typically get called into different sites that require different knowledge and different expertises. So their pay scale is pretty good, and then on top of that, of course, you do get the overtime, which I also get. Of course, I'm working over the clock, doing a menial task. I still got to get paid. So yeah, the pay is decent starting off. You're not making as much as like probably a design engineer or something. Somebody who has probably a master's degree and understands the complete mathematical physics book knowledge of the engineering. You're still an apprentice. Which is why I say this job is great for fresh graduates. But then that also comes with like being away from your family, and going in, putting miles on your car, which is the biggest thing. A lot of the reason why a couple people don't want to do this is because the toll that it takes on your vehicle. But yeah, like if you are knowledgeable, you do get a better pay. For me right now, where I'm living in a lower cost of living area. This is the area where I do field engineering services for. So, like I said, my maximum drive is 250 miles. This area, like the cost of living here is low, so I save a bit more money, and I make a decent. I've been for the last year now. I've been making a decent salary for what I've been, living with. So that's pretty good in my sense of my understanding. But yeah, the more experienced you get, you can either decide to continue in this role. You'll get some days where you work, they juice you, out with how much work you get, and then some days you'll just be like, oh man, like I'm not doing anything. I should be. I got a day off, a couple days off. I'm gonna probably spend some time for myself. There's gonna be days like that. If you're working in an office, it's gonna be a 9 to 5. You got to either go into the office or you're gonna work from home, providing support, that kind of thing. But yeah, just know that that kind of lifestyle doesn't come with being a field engineer. Um, if you got commitments, it's gonna be hard. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share about and what I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope it helped you guys. And please do check out my first video if you haven't seen that one. But yeah, that's what it's like. That's what my experience has been like with those things I talked about today, in that aspect of field engineering. So please look into it if you're interested, and leave a comment down below if you have any specific questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you guys.